Hello guys, welcome to True Crime with Dickson, where each story sends chills down your spine. Today brace yourself for the gripping saga of Joe Metheny's. Let's delve in. Imagine biting into a juicy burger or sandwich, savoring the flavors of the meat and toppings. Now imagine that meat containing the remains of murdered human beings. As sickening as it sounds, this is the utterly depraved claim made by one of America's most notorious serial killers, Joe Metheny. The story you're about to hear doesn't require any embellishment to be utterly chilling. It's the true tale of a rage-fueled rampage that cast a dark cloud over Baltimore in the 1990s. A narrative of escalating violence, addiction, deception, and inhumanity that will make you question how far someone can stray from the moral path. Joe Metheny's a name you may not initially recognize, but by the end of this story, it's one you'll never forget. Because the details of his crimes plumb depths of depravity that rate among the most disturbing in modern American lore. Brace yourselves for a journey into the psyche of a killer whose motives remain murky, but whose actions rocked an entire city to its core. From impoverished beginnings clouded in contradicting narratives, Metheny underwent a transformation from troubled youth to unrepentant murderer without a shred of remorse. His hunting grounds centered on the most vulnerable populations, the homeless, drug addicts, and sex workers who would go widely unnoticed and unmissed as they disappeared. What began as a misdirected quest for vengeance mutated into a full-fledged lust for killing that rapidly spiraled out of control. Metheny's misdeeds culminated in the most sickening, unverified claim of monetizing his crimes by selling his victims' remains, mixed into food at an illegal roadside stand he operated near his workplace. So get ready to have your appetite for the macabre truly tested as we plunge into the making of a Baltimore-based serial killer whose name still carries an air of infamy over 25 years later. This is the disturbing true crime story of the heinous acts of Joe Metheny, one of the most infamous and brutal serial killers in modern American history. His tale of rage, addiction, and unspeakable violence would shock even hardened crime buffs. Joe Metheny was born in Baltimore in 1955 into a life of hardship. His father was an alcoholic who died in a car accident when Joe was just 6 years old, leaving his mother Jean to raise 6 children, largely on her own. Joe claimed his childhood was one of neglect, with his mom working non-stop and sending him to live with other families in foster-like situations. However, Jean insisted she did everything possible to provide for her kids, keeping a roof over their heads and food on the table through her various jobs as a waitress, barmaid, and food truck driver. At 18, Metheny joined the military in 1973, serving a stint in Germany, though he also bizarrely claimed to his mother's skepticism that he did a tour in Vietnam. What is known is that he developed addictions to heroin and alcohol during his army years that would plague him the rest of his life. Upon returning to Baltimore, Metheny lived a transient existence, drifting between homeless camps, bars, and odd jobs like forklift operating to fuel his addictions. At one point, he had a son with a woman also struggling with substance abuse. In an attempt to turn his life around for his child, Metheny found work as a truck driver. But he flew into an uncontrollable rage when he returned home one day to find his wife and son had fled while he was away on a long haul. Metheny became consumed with tracking down his ex-wife to extract revenge for taking his son, seeing it as the ultimate betrayal. His search led him to the Hanover Street Bridge in 1995, a known location for drug activity. Unable to find his ex-wife, Metheny encountered 2 homeless men there in an incoherent state, Randall Brewer and Randy Piker. In a sudden burst of explosive violence, he bludgeoned them both to death with an axe. Over the next several hours, Metheny's depravity escalated even further. He lured a sex worker to the bridge under the pretense of exchanging drugs for information, then raped and murdered her. He killed a second sex worker the same way, then upon glimpsing a fisherman who may have witnessed something, killed him too with a metal pipe. Metheny weighted down the 3 bodies with rocks and dumped them in the river. Arrested shortly after, a contaminated piece of evidence allowed Metheny to walk free on the murders of Brewer and Piker. But his unquenchable thirst for violence was just beginning. In one of the most horrific claims from Metheny, he stated he began selling the human remains mixed into beef and pork sandwiches from an illegal food truck. He operated on the premises for several weeks until he had used up all the meat. While this has never been corroborated, it speaks to the sheer depravity of Metheny's mindset. His final confirmed victim was 23-year-old sex worker Kimberly Spicer, who Metheny stabbed to death in December 1996 after luring her to his trailer with the promise of drugs. Another woman, Rita Kemper, barely escaped with her life the same night after Metheny brutalized her, only managing to get away by scaling a fence surrounding the trailer area in a scene of sheer terror. It was Rita Kemper's frantic escape that finally caused the unraveling of Metheny's web of murder. Her story prompted Metheny's brother-in-law to go to the police, becoming an informant who helped secure a taped confession and the killer's eventual arrest on December 15, 1996, while leaving a company Christmas party. In a twist, it emerged that Metheny's boss, Jack Stein Sr., was the head of an organized theft ring, bribing employees to steal merchandise from their companies and getting caught up in gun trafficking and arson plots. While never definitively linked to Metheny's killings, some have wondered if the criminal boss turned a blind eye to the horrors happening at his pallet company. Metheny eventually confessed to at least 10 murders, though the true victim count is unknown. He showed no remorse, stating he killed because he got a rush out of it and enjoyed it. He was convicted of 2 murders, Kimberly Spicer and Catherine Magaziner, whose body was found buried at the pallet company minus her severed head. Metheny received a life sentence for Spicer and was originally given the death penalty for Magaziner's murder before it was commuted to life. The rest of Metheny's days were spent in prison, his weight eventually ballooning to over 450 pounds and creating the disturbing mugshot image that became infamous online in true crime circles. He died in August 2017 at age 62, finally being held accountable, but likely taking the full truth about his unthinkable crimes to the grave. While the complete depravity of what Joe Metheny was capable of may never be known, his name will forever be associated with a spiral of violence fueled by rage, addiction, misogyny, and an utter lack of humanity. His rampage cast a dark cloud over Baltimore, leaving a trail of shattered lives and unanswered questions still haunting the city today. With Metheny convicted of only 2 murders officially, but confessing to nearly a dozen, did he take even more secrets about his untold body count to the grave? Were there other shallow graves, other remains disposed of and consumed unknowingly by unsuspecting customers of his claimed street food stand? So the next time you're driving down the road and spot an unfamiliar roadside beef stand, you may want to think twice before grabbing a sandwich. The bizarre case of Joe Metheny is a grim reminder that sometimes you never really know what or who you could be eating. His criminal acts were truly horrifying, operating an illegal meat processing plant and misleading customers by serving them human remains disguised as beef products. It's a story that will make you lose your appetite and look twice at any roadside food vendor. Let this dark tale serve as a warning to be cautious about what you consume, especially from unknown or shady sources. You never know the grisly surprises that could be lurking in that seemingly innocent burger or BBQ sandwich. So tread carefully, ask questions, and don't let your hunger blind you to potential dangers lurking in that greasy paper bag. The story of Joe Metheny will make you think long and hard before biting into that next roadside meal. What do you think about Joe's story? Leave your comments below. Thanks for watching.